The notification sound echoes through a bustling cafe in first century Palestine. A carpenter from Nazareth pulls out his smartphone, scrolls through his feed, and pauses at a video of someone turning water into wine. He hits share, adding the caption, "Been there, done that. Miracle Monday." Sound absurd? Perhaps. But this question has been quietly captivating theologians, sociologists, and digital anthropologists for years. Would the most influential figure in human history, a man who fundamentally changed how we communicate, connect, and spread ideas, embrace the very platforms that now shape our modern world? The answer isn't as simple as you might think. To understand whether Jesus would use social media, we first need to examine how he actually communicated. And here's where most people get it wrong. We picture Jesus as a quiet, contemplative figure speaking only to small groups of devoted followers. The reality? He was history's first viral content creator. Consider the feeding of the 5,000. Modern scholars estimate this wasn't just 5,000 men, but likely 15 to 20,000 people when you include women and children, making it one of the largest gatherings in ancient Palestine. Jesus didn't accidentally stumble into this crowd. Archaeological evidence from sites around the Sea of Galilee suggests he strategically chose locations with natural acoustics, places where his voice could carry to massive audiences. But here's the fascinating part. Jesus understood something that modern social media algorithms have only recently discovered: the power of the parable. These weren't just nice stories. They were perfectly crafted content designed to stick in people's minds and spread organically. Each parable had multiple layers of meaning, ensuring different audiences would find different truths, much like how a single tweet can resonate differently across various communities. The parable of the Good Samaritan, for instance, wasn't just about helping others. To his Jewish audience, it was inflammatory content, deliberately provocative. Samaritans were despised by Jews, considered religiously and ethnically inferior. Jesus choosing a Samaritan as the hero of his story was like a modern influencer deliberately posting controversial content to spark engagement and conversation. And it worked. 2,000 years later, we're still talking about it. Dr. Richard Bauckham, a leading New Testament scholar, argues that Jesus operated within what he calls oral networks, the ancient equivalent of social media. Information spread through these networks faster than official channels. A healing in Capernaum would be discussed in Jerusalem within days, not through official religious channels, but through ordinary people sharing extraordinary stories. And Jesus was strategic about this. He told people to go and tell no one about certain miracles, a psychological technique that virtually guaranteed they'd tell everyone. Mark's gospel records at least 10 instances where Jesus gave this instruction, and every single time, the news spread rapidly. Modern psychologists call this reverse psychology. Jesus was using growth hacking techniques 2 millennia before the term existed. But would this translate to Instagram stories and TikTok videos? Here's where it gets interesting. Jesus had 3 core communication strategies that align perfectly with successful social media presence. First, he created shareable content. The Sermon on the Mount wasn't delivered once to one audience. Biblical scholars have identified at least 17 different occasions where Jesus repeated similar teachings, adapting them for different crowds and contexts, much like how influencers repurpose content across platforms. Second, he built authentic relationships. Despite massive followings, Jesus maintained intimate connections with individuals. He remembered people's names, their stories, their struggles. When he encountered the woman at the well, he didn't just preach at her. He engaged in genuine dialogue, asking questions, showing interest in her life. This mirrors the most successful social media personalities today, who balance mass reach with a personal connection. Third, he wasn't afraid of controversy. Jesus regularly challenged social norms, called out hypocrisy, and said things that made people uncomfortable. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. In today's terms, that's the kind of statement that would trend for weeks and generate thousands of response videos. I'm curious, where are you watching this from right now? Are you at home, on your lunch break, maybe scrolling through your phone during a commute? And what do you do for work? Drop a comment and let me know, because understanding how we consume information today actually helps us understand how people consumed Jesus' teachings 2,000 years ago. But here's where the plot thickens. While Jesus was masterful at spreading his message, he was also deeply critical of performance-based righteousness, exactly what social media often encourages. He condemned those who prayed loudly in public to be seen by others, who gave to charity specifically to gain recognition, who performed acts of piety for social status rather than genuine faith. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. He warned in Matthew 6:1. This presents what theologians call the authenticity paradox. How do you spread a message about humility and authentic faith through platforms that inherently encourage performance and self-promotion? Dr. Heidi Campbell, who studies digital religion at Texas A&M University, suggests Jesus would likely approach social media the same way he approached the temple system of his time, using it strategically while simultaneously critiquing its underlying assumptions. He worked within existing religious structures while challenging their core premises. The evidence suggests Jesus would probably be the kind of social media user who breaks all the conventional rules and somehow makes it work anyway. He might post a photo of himself with tax collectors and social outcasts, caption it "dinner with friends," and watch as religious leaders lose their minds in the comments. He'd probably go live from random locations, a mountaintop, a fishing boat, someone's living room, without perfect lighting or professional equipment, because the message mattered more than the medium. But here's what's truly remarkable about Jesus' communication style. He adapted his message to his audience without compromising his core principles. To fishermen, he spoke about nets and catches. To farmers, he discussed seeds and harvest. To urban dwellers, he talked about building foundations and investment strategies. This wasn't manipulation, it was masterful communication. Modern social media allows for this kind of targeted messaging at unprecedented scale. A single person can create content that resonates with teenagers in Tokyo, grandmothers in Texas, and business executives in London, all simultaneously. Jesus, who demonstrated remarkable cultural fluency in his interactions with Romans, Greeks, Samaritans, and various Jewish communities, would likely excel at this kind of cross-cultural communication. Consider how he handled the woman caught in adultery. Instead of delivering a standard lecture about sin and forgiveness, he turned the situation into a teachable moment for everyone present. He redirected attention from the woman's shame to the crowd's hypocrisy, created space for reflection rather than reaction, and delivered a message that resonated across cultural and moral boundaries. That's high-level social media strategy right there. But would Jesus want millions of followers? This question reveals something crucial about how we misunderstand both Jesus and social media. The goal was never the numbers, it was the impact. Jesus consistently prioritized depth over breadth. When crowds got too large and unfocused, he often withdrew to spend time with smaller groups or individuals. Archaeological discoveries at ancient synagogues throughout Palestine show they typically held between 100 to 300 people. Yet Jesus regularly drew crowds that overwhelmed these spaces, forcing gatherings outdoors. Ancient historians like Josephus describe similar crowd sizes only for major political events or festival celebrations. This suggests Jesus was drawing audiences comparable to modern rock concerts or political rallies. Yet he never seemed impressed by his own popularity. Luke 14 records him actually trying to discourage followers by explaining the difficulty of discipleship. If anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. That's not exactly optimized for follower growth. This reflects a sophisticated understanding of influence that many modern influencers miss. Jesus understood that a smaller group of deeply committed followers would ultimately have more impact than a massive audience of casual observers. The 12 disciples, not the 5,000 who showed up for free food, changed the world. Social media analytics would probably confuse modern marketers if applied to Jesus' ministry. His engagement rates would be off the charts. People literally left everything to follow him. But his conversion funnel would be terrible by conventional standards. He had this habit of giving people difficult challenges right when they seemed most interested. Go, sell everything you have and give to the poor, he told one wealthy potential follower. Not exactly a user-friendly onboarding experience. But here's what modern digital strategists are rediscovering. Authenticity trumps optimization. The most successful online personalities today aren't those who perfectly follow best practices, but those who genuinely connect with their audience around shared values and genuine experiences. Jesus' approach to handling criticism also offers insights into how he might navigate social media toxicity. When religious leaders tried to trap him with loaded questions, he rarely took the bait directly. Instead, he reframed conversations, asked counter-questions, or told stories that revealed the deeper issues at play. Should we pay taxes to Caesar? They asked, hoping to create political controversy. Instead of a yes or no answer that would alienate half his audience, Jesus asked to see a coin, then delivered one of history's most elegant responses. Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's. He transformed a political trap into a theological teaching moment. This kind of nuanced thinking is exactly what's missing from most social media discourse. Jesus consistently refused to be backed into false dichotomies or respond to bad faith arguments on their own terms. He had this remarkable ability to elevate conversations rather than get dragged down by them. Welcome to Professor Archive, where we explore history's most fascinating questions through a lens you won't find in traditional textbooks. If you're enjoying this deep dive into whether Jesus would use social media, hit that like button and consider subscribing for more thought-provoking content. And if this video has really got you thinking, a super thanks would help us continue creating these in-depth explorations. Now let's continue our journey. The question of Jesus and social media becomes even more intriguing when we examine his relationship with existing media of his time. First-century Palestine had sophisticated information networks. Roman roads facilitated rapid communication across the empire. Jewish communities maintained connections through synagogue networks and religious festivals that drew people from across the known world. Jesus leveraged these networks masterfully. His timing wasn't accidental. Many of his most significant teachings occurred during major festivals when Jerusalem's population swelled from 50,000 to over 200,000 people. These visitors would return home carrying stories, creating what modern marketers call organic reach across the Mediterranean world. The crucifixion itself demonstrates Jesus' understanding of maximum impact timing. Passover was not just a religious celebration, but the ancient equivalent of a major media event. Josephus records that Passover crowds in Jerusalem could exceed 250,000 people. Jesus chose this moment for his most dramatic and controversial act, ensuring maximum witness and, inevitably, maximum story spread. But here's where traditional interpretations miss something crucial. Jesus didn't just use these networks, he fundamentally changed how they operated. Before Jesus, religious teaching typically flowed through established hierarchies, from priest to people, from educated to uneducated, from pure to impure. Jesus flipped this model entirely. He taught tax collectors who then shared with other tax collectors. He spoke with Samaritan women who carried his message to their communities. He empowered fishermen to become teachers. This wasn't just inclusive, it was revolutionary. He created what network theorists call weak tie connections, bridges between communities that previously didn't communicate. Modern social media operates on exactly these principles. Information spreads not just through strong connections, friends and family, but through weak ties, acquaintances, followers, shared interest groups. Jesus intuitively understood that diverse networks are more powerful than homogeneous ones for spreading ideas. Consider the story of the Gerasene man possessed by demons. After his healing, this man begged to join Jesus' traveling group. Instead, Jesus sent him back to his own community with instructions to tell them how much the Lord has done for you. This wasn't rejection, it was strategic deployment. One authentic local testimony would carry more weight than a dozen visiting teachers. This suggests Jesus would probably approach social media with similar strategy. Rather than trying to personally manage every platform, he might empower others to share their authentic experiences within their own networks and communities. He understood that indigenous voices are always more credible than outside experts. The feeding miracles also reveal sophisticated understanding of viral content creation. Both the feeding of the 5,000 and 4,000 weren't just about providing food, they were carefully orchestrated experiences designed to create lasting memories and stories people couldn't stop sharing. Recent archaeological work by Dr. Mordecai Aviam at Bethsaida has revealed the likely location of the feeding of the 5,000. The site shows evidence of large gatherings and includes natural amphitheater features that would have enhanced acoustics and sightlines. Jesus didn't just randomly pick a spot, he chose a location optimized for maximum impact. But the genius was in the participation. Instead of simply providing food, Jesus involved the crowd in the miracle. People sat in organized groups. Disciples distributed the food. Everyone participated in the experience. Modern event planners call this experiential marketing, creating memorable, shareable experiences rather than passive consumption. The result? These stories spread across the ancient world with remarkable consistency. Despite being transmitted orally for decades before being written down, the feeding accounts in different Gospels maintain striking similarity in key details. That's the hallmark of genuinely viral content. It retains its core message, even as it spreads across different communities and contexts. Would Jesus create YouTube videos? Probably not in the way we might expect. His content would likely be uncomfortably authentic. No perfect lighting, no scripted presentations, no clickbait thumbnails. Instead, imagine raw, unedited conversations with real people facing real problems. Content that made viewers think rather than simply entertained them. His comment sections would be chaos. Religious authorities arguing with tax collectors, Roman soldiers debating with Jewish nationalists, sex workers sharing testimonies while Pharisees quoted scripture. But somehow, through it all, genuine transformation would be happening. The parable format would translate perfectly to modern platforms. Twitter threads exploring deep truth through simple stories. Instagram posts that looked ordinary but contained profound meaning for those ready to see it. TikTok videos that went viral not because they were trendy, but because they revealed something true about human nature. But here's what makes this question so compelling. Jesus' communication style was simultaneously ancient and utterly contemporary. He used the oldest human art form, storytelling, to address timeless concerns about meaning, purpose, justice, and love. These same concerns drive much of our social media engagement today. People share content that makes them feel less alone, more understood, more hopeful. They respond to authenticity, vulnerability, and truth-telling. They gravitate toward voices that speak to their deepest longings and fears. By these measures, Jesus was already the ultimate social media content creator. The real question isn't whether Jesus would use social media, but whether social media would change him. And here, the historical evidence suggests something remarkable. Jesus consistently adapted his methods while maintaining absolute consistency in his message and character. He spoke differently to Nicodemus than to the Samaritan woman, used different examples with different crowds, adjusted his approach based on cultural context. But his core message about love, justice, forgiveness, and transformation remained unchanged. He was infinitely flexible in technique, immovable in truth. This suggests Jesus would likely master every social media platform while simultaneously transcending their limitations. He'd understand their algorithms without being enslaved by them, engage their features while refusing to be defined by them, build massive followings while keeping his focus on individual transformation. Most significantly, Jesus would probably use social media to do what he did with every communication tool of his time. Reveal the gap between performance and reality, between image and truth, between what we project and who we actually are. He had this uncanny ability to see through facades and speak to the authentic person underneath. In our age of carefully curated online personas, that kind of radical authenticity would be both terrifying and irresistible. Jesus would probably be the person whose posts made you examine your own life, whose stories stayed with you long after you'd scrolled past, whose presence on social media somehow made the entire platform feel more real. But he'd also probably break a lot of unspoken social media rules. He'd likely ignore follower counts, post at weird times, engage seriously with trolls, share meals with people considered problematic, and consistently prioritize real relationships over virtual ones. The historical Jesus was someone who used every available tool to connect with people and share transformative truth. Social media would just be another tool. Powerful, potentially dangerous, but ultimately valuable for reaching people who might never encounter his message otherwise. As we wrap up this exploration, remember that Professor Archive exists to ask the questions that traditional sources often avoid. If this deep dive has challenged your thinking or offered new perspectives, your support through likes, subscribes, and super thanks helps us continue these explorations. History isn't just about the past, it's about understanding how timeless truths apply to our modern world. The question of whether Jesus would use social media ultimately reveals more about us than about him. It forces us to examine what we're really looking for in our online interactions, what messages we're spreading through our digital choices, and whether our virtual selves reflect our authentic values. Perhaps the more important question isn't whether Jesus would use social media, but whether we're using it in ways that would make him proud. Are we spreading messages of hope, justice, and love? Are we building bridges between communities or deepening divisions? Are we using these powerful tools to elevate human dignity or exploit human weakness? The historical Jesus consistently used whatever communication tools were available to share transformative truth and build authentic community. The technology changes, but the opportunity remains the same. In a world of infinite connectivity, the deepest human needs, for meaning, for belonging, for truth, for love, remain exactly what they were 2,000 years ago. And that perhaps is the most remarkable thing of all. The same message that spread through oral networks in first century Palestine continues to spread through digital networks today, because the human heart it addresses hasn't fundamentally changed. We're still searching for the same things, still struggling with the same questions, still longing for the same hope. Whether delivered through parables by the Sea of Galilee or shared through smartphone screens around the world, truth has a way of finding its audience. And love, it turns out, translates perfectly across every medium ever invented.